Hey everyone, I'm HammyD, and these are my thoughts on the Division beta that took place this past weekend. So, The Division's going to be an upcoming game from Ubisoft, and it takes place in kind of like a post apocalyptic, post catastrophe New York City. And you're playing as a sleeper agent that have been activated by the government to take back Manhattan. In this game, it looks like we're only going to be able to be in Manhattan, but I still felt like the world was large enough, or looked large enough on the map, to add some variety. And that's pretty much all we know regarding the story, as this beta wasn't really a beta, and it was definitely more of a demo. I was a little disappointed at the lack of features that were implemented for this weekend, and it felt more like we were just kind of demoing the game, like it was a very small piece that we were allowed to see, and they're going to try and keep the rest secret. There was only one story mission, there was no crafting, and almost all of the character perks and base perks were completely locked. It felt kind of empty in the streets when you were running around, and it felt just kind of boring at times. However, the one area that did unlock, or a little chunk of the area, was the Dark Zone, and I had a blast in the Dark Zone, and I spent most of my times with my friends playing around in this PvP, PvE area. That was a lot of fun. And I'll get to the Dark Zone a little bit later, as it was the majority of my time this past weekend. I just was really surprised at the lack of content that was allowed for us to see this weekend. And with a month left between now and the launch of the game, I'm hoping that the omissions were to keep the mystery alive and kind of surprise us with the actual game releases, and it's not because it's incomplete or it's not completely done yet. I highly doubt that is the case. And I'm guessing they just want to keep a lot of stuff, close to the vest and allow us to really experience the game when it comes out. With all of that being said, I really did enjoy my time this past weekend. It convinced me that this game is going to be pretty innovative, and it's going to be a big hit. I think it's going to be one of the better games of this year. I know that's kind of bold to say now, but just based on the tight mechanics and everything I got to play with this weekend, I was really happy with it. So in this video, I'm just kind of going to go over some of the thoughts I had on the mechanics and what we were allowed to see. So first up are the basic game mechanics of this game, and it's going to be a cover-based shooter, which means the majority of the time you're going to be fighting behind chest-high walls of sorts and carefully aiming at a target in cover, but while you're in cover yourself. Usually these games are not my favorite, but I have to say the cover mechanics felt really polished, and the animations going in and out of cover were smooth. I could hold down one button to go from one piece of cover to the next, and it felt really fun. It felt exhilarating when you were moving in a firefight. However, while in the open world, you didn't really need to use the cover very much, I found. Doing side objectives and just running around, I was out in the open a lot of the time, and I didn't feel the need to get behind cover too much. In the missions and in the Dark Zone, absolutely, cover was completely necessary. And I also have a feeling like a lot of the random encounters were removed from the open world, from the streets in Manhattan and stuff. There were side objectives that had enemies, and every now and then you'd come across like maybe a couple guys that were like picking on a citizen or something, and you had to save them. But for the most part, it felt pretty empty, and I think they did that on purpose. I think they just kind of wanted people to not be overwhelmed with the amount of enemies on the map, and maybe in the full game there will be a lot more rival gangs just hanging around waiting to ambush you. So really when I wasn't in a main mission or the Dark Zone, I would just toggle auto run on and run around, which there was kind of a lack of fast travel. I believe we could fast travel to the main mission and our main base, and that was about it. We couldn't fast travel to any of the checkpoints for the Dark Zone, which meant hoofing it around the city quite a bit. Luckily, the sounds and the music and the ambiance of the whole game was really nice, and it wasn't that bad to run around. So That's kind of the basic mechanics of the game. You're going to be spending most of your time in cover shooting at bad guys. And every now and then you're going to come out of cover to help your buddy flank, and you're going to take out enemies. So another feature that was kind of cut down for this beta was the base management. In The Division, you're going to be building a base to work out of. This is essentially going to be your home and where the majority of the downtime seems to be spent. And in the beta, we were given a quick tour of the base and then told to collect materials to rebuild each wing. However, we could only rebuild the medical wing. There is a technical and security wing that we got to see kind of like the bare bones of, which was nice, but we weren't allowed to build it at all. We could collect the materials, but we just couldn't turn them in. It was a little disappointing. Again, just the lack of content, the lack of allowing us to really experience the other parts of the base management. But again, I have a feeling there was a reason behind it. And it did leave me wondering what those other wings are going to provide as far as perks for your character, because that's how your character progresses, is you unlock these wings, you build them up, and then you get to choose perks based on which wings you've unlocked. And there were some other various vendors in the base and a stash for your Dark Zone loot, which I'll get to a little bit later. The vendors just had your guns and armor and some appearance items, so that was pretty interesting. And I think when it's all said and done, the base is going to be really impressive. It was nice to see kind of how it evolved after I upgraded part of the medical wing, because when I got there, it was all run down and kind of dirty. And then I collected these supplies, I passed them into the medical officer, and the next thing I know, it was getting cleaned up, and everything, the boxes were organized, and there was medical equipment around. So I felt like that's awesome, and watching my base evolve when the full game releases is going to be pretty fun. So I just wish I could have seen more of the base management this weekend. So for this beta, there was only one mission unlocked, and it seems like there's going to be a lot of main story missions that are kind of tell the story of the Division, and at the same time help you unlock the bases and kind of guide you through the game. But we only got to do one mission for this beta weekend, and it involved going into the Madison Medical Center and eliminating bad guys and then defeating a boss on the roof. Which was really fun. It was. It was also the easiest way to grind to the highest level of the game, which was level 8. Just putting the mission on hard and going nuts was the best way to do it. And I enjoyed the mission my first couple times through it. I really did. The first time, actually, my group and I made a couple mistakes, and we ended up having to retreat back a little bit, get behind cover, and it was really exhilarating. However, the next times I played the mission, the bad guys would come from the same direction, and the enemies would use the same tactics, and it was almost like we were predicting their movements and shooting them before they even got to their cover. So, which, it kind of reminds me a lot of a dungeon in an MMO or something, where you kind of you have a strategy, you know where they're coming from, so you just get more efficient at it. That being said, it would have been nice to see them spawn from a different location, or maybe a different enemy type come out wielding a different gun and flank us or something. Just use a bit more complicated tactics so we didn't just plow through it the following times. But I'm guessing again that this was the planned idea for the beta this weekend, and hopefully what lies for us in the full game will be a bit more exhilarating when it comes to main missions. And I think this goes for the side objectives as well, because there was only a handful of side objectives that we were allowed to do. But they did send us all over the map, which I really enjoyed. And I think my favorite one was probably the Echo Beacons, where we got to go to this area and activate this Echo Beacon, which kind of gives you this fragmented, augmented reality cutscene in the game that puts the pieces together of the story and kind of tells you what was going on following the outbreak of this catastrophe that left the city in peril. There were some other side objectives that were just kind of like quick quests where I just needed to kill a certain NPC, eliminate all the enemies in an area, grab the loot, and go. And there was also another one where we had to rescue a trapped civilian, where we had to kind of find the key, eliminate the people guarding the civilian, and then free them, which was kind of interesting as well. I definitely think the best part about the open world of this game and the side objectives is the verticality, where one of the side objectives was to go to the top of a roof and activate this like transmitter that would reveal more of the city. This is pretty par for the course for Ubisoft. They love sending you to towers to unlock a lot of the map. I've never had a problem with it. I've always thought it was kind of one of those fun things to do while you were bored. And again, putting it in this game was kind of interesting how they pieced it together with the rest of the mechanics. So I really enjoyed that, and it was nice to see how open the world was. You can go into a lot of buildings, and you can climb up on a lot of roofs, and sometimes you have to climb up on a truck to get onto a roof to get to another roof, and it felt like a concrete jungle out there, and it was really fun. So even with the side objectives and the main mission, there was not a whole lot to do during the beta. However, there was the Dark Zone, which is where I found myself spending the majority of my time, and where I felt the most of my time will be spent when the game fully releases. The Dark Zone's an open world PvP, PvE area where there are no rules. There's NPCs that wander around and drop loot, and anyone can kill them. So it kind of is like this instance that's open and all bets are off. Like, there's just a ton of players and NPCs everywhere, and you never know who is going to be hostile and who's not. And the whole idea why you go to the Dark Zone is to collect loot from the NPCs wandering the streets. And in order to get this loot out of the Dark Zone, you have to go to an extraction point, then shoot a flare, and which will call down a helicopter. And after like a minute or so, the helicopter will drop a rope. You attach your loot to the rope, and it brings it back to your stash in your base. And here's where things get a little tricky. Anybody can kill anyone else in the Dark Zone. So since PvP is completely open, if you die, you drop all of your Dark Zone loot and some of your Dark Zone funds, which you can buy more loot with, and anybody can pick it up. However, killing another player is going to mark you as rogue and alert other players on the map to your position. And if you kill enough players, you're going to get a bounty placed on your head, and then the chase is on. And if you kill a player who has a bounty on their head, which when somebody got a bounty on their head, everybody on the map would converge on them. They would not last very long. But if you kill them with their bounty, you get a ton of Dark Zone experience and funds. Not to mention, they drop all of their loot that they were carrying. So you had to be very careful when it came to PvP and when you were going to initiate a fight. So I found the player interactions in the Dark Zone were just amazing. Most of the time you'd approach like another player or a group of players and you'd point your weapon at them until maybe one of them would say that, you know, everything's good, they weren't going to shoot you, and you'd reply back you weren't going to shoot them because comms were open and it was vicinity based. So you could always kind of hear what they were saying. If they had their comms on, you could turn it off. It's not mandatory. If there was a firefight, they would always kind of be fast and chaotic, usually involving one person trying to flee and chase another through the streets, or maybe another group of people would see the rogue agent and chase them down with you. Sometimes there would be a firefight, one person would accidentally tag another person, get marked as rogue, and then there was like this commotion over comms whether or not they should be killed or if it truly was an accident. The communication was really key in the Dark Zone, and making your intentions known was always a creative way. Sometimes people would do calisthenics to show them that, you know, just exercising, nothing, no hostile threat here, which was really kind of hilarious. So I found a lot of the times when you would go to an extraction zone to get your loot out, there was a really tense moment when you would approach that zone, because all you want to do is get that loot out and you want to be able to keep it. But if there was someone else extracting there was always a question of whether or not they were going to kill you, take your loot, and put it on the rope, or they were thinking the same thing. So PvP in the Dark Zone was really fun, and it was really innovative. It played up that whole aspect of survival, of, everyone's in this together, we all want to get the loot from the NPCs and get it out, but at the same time, the easiest way to get loot was just to wait for someone to extract, kill them, grab their loot, and attach it and go. However, it would mark you as rogue, sometimes put a bounty on your head, and then everybody on the map would be alerted to your position. And the firefights that ensued afterwards were very, very fun. So with all of that said, I did have some performance issues in the start of the game, which just meant some tweaking of settings in the graphics and stuff. This is a really CPU-intensive game, so make sure you have a pretty decent CPU if you plan on picking it up. And if you do have FPS problems, just lower volumetric fog. For whatever reason, I saw this on Twitter, somebody tweeted about it, and I lowered it, and boom, 60 FPS. So that was fine. The only other complaint I had was there was a presence of hacking in the Dark Zone. On one occasion, my friend and I were shot through a wall and mysteriously died while at an extraction point. And I was a little confused of it. I went onto the Reddit a few days later, and I did find a post showing that there was a video out there proving that somebody had come up with a wall hack for this game. So it was a little disheartening to have that, but it was just a beta. And I'm hoping in the next month, Ubisoft realizes that this could be an issue, and before the game releases, these hacking issues are investigated and measures are put in place to stop them. But that was really it. So, despite the limited nature of the beta, I really did enjoy my time playing it, and I'm looking forward to the full release. I know that I did say that it felt empty, but I don't think that's going to reflect the game in any way. I just think that was for this beta weekend, and they wanted to keep a lot of the stuff a mystery and a secret, much like most of the story. So, while there are still some features in question, like crafting, the rest of the base management system, more of the gun upgrades and stuff, I still think I'm going to be picking this game up, and I expect a full review on it either way. I'm going to buy it on release, and probably within the week or so after, I will have a full scripted review of the game with my final thoughts. For the most part, I like what Ubisoft put together. Not sure if I agree with how they did their beta weekend, but I'm really excited to experience more of The Division come March 8th. So until then, I hope this video was helpful for you, and I know it was a bit more conversational, but that was the idea. These are just my own thoughts and impressions on what I got to experience this past weekend. So if you enjoyed it, go ahead and like the video and maybe leave a comment. I would gladly talk about this game. I had a lot of experience with it, so leave a comment and we can discuss, thoughts. And if you want to see more of my videos, go ahead and subscribe. It would help me out a ton. So other than that, thanks and have a great day.